Call to order the regular board meeting of February 5th, 2018 at 7 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance tonight will be given by the board.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Supervisor Echeverry.
Here.
Treasurer LaFata.
Here.
Trustee Anderson.
Here.
Trustee Joseph.
Here.
Trustee Demink.
Here.
Clerk Berry is here. Trustee Vosberg is excused.
She did contact me and let me know she wouldn't be here, so no objection. We'll give Trustee Vosberg an excuse. No presentations. Department reports. Director Coddington is going to speak with us about an emergency pump repair at the Cotton Road lift station. Welcome, Director.
Good evening. This is an update. Cotton Road Pump Station is our biggest pump station. This is pump number 1. This is the first time it's been in for a major rebuild. We had to get new seals, new bearings, new O-rings, gaskets, several wear ring cover, pins. They had to disassemble it, sandblast it, test and bake everything. Anyway, we should have pretty much a new pump when it gets back. This is the first rebuild of this pump. This is 3 out of the 4 pumps in that station. This will be the 3rd one getting rebuilt. These pumps are 12, 13 years old, and they have done millions of circulations. So they are wearing out normally, but this is the 3rd pump, and I don't know if the value was on the information there, but the price to do this pump was $15,780. So it's basically just a report on that pump number 1. It does come with a warranty for 1 year. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Trustee Joseph.
Is this, so this is just a report to the board, or is this like part of your annual budget? Is this like a preventative maintenance, or what's the maintenance schedule for that pump?
This is not a preventive maintenance. We noticed that it started having problems and started drawing more amps than normal, and then it gets to where it starts kicking out. And at that point, we try back flushing it and testing it every way we can. And if it continues having issues, then we have to take it in. So that's how that happened on this pump.
So this is a repair. This is not scheduled maintenance.
That's right.
And do we know that there was a failure, or is it just anything we can look to in our other, other pumps? Is this
Well, we can watch the trends on the runs. When they start drawing more amps and that, we know that there's a failure coming or what have you.
Okay.
But these pumps run continuously. We are going to try to do a little better with the preventive maintenance. Like I say, this is the 3rd out of 4 pumps on this station that we should be in good shape.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the board? Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Another department report from the DPW on the 2018 Great Lakes Water Authority contract renegotiation process.
Yes, good evening, Board. So just to update you on the negotiation process, we are in year 5 of our contract with Great Lakes Water Authority, which means it is a chance for us to negotiate. Currently, Great Lakes Water Authority is under what they call a contract alignment process, which means the current 30 members of the Great Lakes Water Authority that are open in 2017 were gifted with a 5-year renewal period. All the remaining 55 communities in the Great Lakes Water Authority 2018 will have a 4-year renewal period, so that everybody, all 85 communities in 4 years will have renewal period. So their goal is to have all communities renegotiate in the same year to avoid huge fluctuations. Currently, they're doing 1/3 of the communities every 3 years, and what happens is when those 1/3 lower their rates, everyone else's increases, and then that's a cyclical thing. So every 2/3 you're going to have an increase, then when you lower yours, we're going to have a savings for that particular year. So they're trying to do it and streamline it so that every 4 years, all communities open their contracts, and so we have an even an equal increase in water rates, so some communities aren't blessed with a decrease and some aren't. So what this is going to do, so what they're going to do with the letter that was sent out or attached on this is the Great Lakes Water Authority wanted us to designate a representative to start the process. They needed it by February 5th. Obviously, Don Coddington would be that representative since he is our department head for DPW. And so what's going to happen is that we are going to be receiving an email from the Great Lakes Water Authority with a schedule of meetings. So we're going to meet in May. The communities that are involved, 55 communities that are involved this year, are broken down every month. There's 7 or 8 communities each month that are broken down. The schedule was attached on the agenda. We are signed up for May, so sometime in May, we'll meet with the Great Lakes Water Authority to go over this contract. So what's going to happen is Superintendent Coddington will get this email. We'll sign up for a meeting in May. They're going to be pre-announced days. They're going to give us some set times. He'll figure out what works best, and then we will proceed to meet with Great Lakes Water Authority. We're going to meet with them at a regional location, so they're not going to come to us. We're going to go to them at some central location in Macomb County, yet to be determined. And what will happen is, in the meantime, when we receive those dates, we'll get an information packet prior to our meeting. We must review this packet, send any changes we want back to them 2 weeks prior to this scheduled meeting. The changes that can be made, as you guys may remember, there's max day, peak hour, and annual volume that we review, which can impact our rates. So we'll have to review those, discuss based on growth, what we think our township's going to grow to make sure those numbers meet what our township's going to require for the future. And then provide them with those numbers that we feel need to be changed. And then what will happen is Great Lakes will come back to us with what their proposed values would be to us, kind of the negotiation process. And once we meet our mutual agreement of numbers, we would have a 45 calendar days after to approve that. The township board can approve that within 45 days of the receipt of the agreement. And the changes for this contract will start July 1st, 2019. So I know this is a lot of information, so if you have any questions, feel free. But essentially, this process is going to start roughly around March 1st, where the emails get sent. Our meeting will be in May, and typically, I would say around mid-August, we will have the board set up to vote on the new contract for Great Lakes Water Authority, and then the new rates will start in July of 19. So it's a lot of information. Do you have any questions on that?
Thank you, Assistant Director Johnson. Any questions from the board? Treasurer LaFata.
Where are we going to get this data to use to correlate what we're going to use for like annual use, peak volume and everything? Where are we going to draw this data from? Future usages and growth and everything. I'm just a little bit skeptical because after this Stantec go around and evidently we've got another process that we're not going to use, and the data's not accurate. What resources are we going to use for this data that we're going to negotiate with?
Detroit, or Great Lakes Water Authority, has what's called a WAMR, which is the Wholesale Automated Meter Reading System. They use their information off of that data to populate all these numbers. So they're going to send us numbers what they think is going to be. We'll utilize those numbers. We also have, we'll base it on what we feel growth is going to be in terms of how many homes we're going to have. We can calculate an average of, what an average household uses and kind of utilize that data to figure out what those numbers will be.
Is there any thought of, going into a means of lowering our peak demands and everything else? At one point in time, we were looking at water towers and everything else. Is there anything has anybody looked into that recently to see if there's some way to, keep going on the efficiency mode?
We are gonna look at that. We also can get all the data from last year, like every day what our usage was and everything like that. We were kind of close on a couple of days last year of going over that. So what happens if you exceed that on the particular day that they pick, they can fine you. And I don't want to call out Harrison on this, but it happened to them because they had a malfunction, and their fine was over $600,000. So it's a serious thing. But we'll be glad to share all the data that we have, use the board to help us with these decisions, and also the engineers that we have for us, and we'll be glad to show you why we use the numbers that we have, and if we decide to tweak them, we may tweak them, but it would be a little, would be my guess at this point.
We lowered them 2 years ago, and we're very accurate on where we're at right now, so we wouldn't want to go much lower than we're at.
Especially with the demand going up.
Correct.
Clerk Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I would just ask that if you anticipate any special meetings being necessary, whether it's with the board or whether it's with the Water and Sewer Rate Advisory Board or anything like that, the sooner you can let us know that, we can get those meetings called for you. Do you anticipate that there will be any special meetings required?
I would like to see a meeting for you guys to accept the numbers that we're going to present and everything, before we send it to Detroit for final signing.
Okay, great. If we can just work together on that to make sure.
At least one special meeting.
Okay, very good. So if you could just let me know, as soon as we have our timeline on that, and when you anticipate that meeting is going to be, I
Absolutely.
think that'll help us facilitate that.
I
Thank
hope
you.
within the next 3 weeks, we'll be able to put a schedule of meetings together and get all that hashed out soon.
Terrific, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the board? Thank you. Director Kirsten, and I do not know what he's reporting on.
Yeah, just a few quick updates from the Public Safety Department. In front of you, the Police Department was honored by the Detroit Tiger Organization and the Stalls Automotive Museum for our 50th anniversary as an established police department in the state of Michigan. The Stalls Automotive Group and Detroit Tigers gave us this 50-year jersey. We had a few of the politicians were able to make it. We're going to hang that proudly in the police department. Some of you did know we had a car that was crashed while policing a scene here last week. Luckily, one of our township trustees that stopped to render aid was protected. The driver drove through the crash scene, impacted one of our police cars. We were very lucky somebody didn't get hurt or killed. I forwarded the ISO report that retired Fire Chief Charbonneau began. I will forward it to you. It is complete. There is some noteworthy value in it. And also, we're assessing the equipment inside the fire department in its current state, and I did send the full-time officials an email with some photographs that we're decommissioning some fire boats that are older than Trustee Domingue. Thank you very much.
Just one question.
Trustee Joseph.
Was the trustee, did you say that the trustee crashed through the barricades? Or did the trustee render aid?
The trustee stopped to render aid.
Was that contributory to the accident, or?
He arrived shortly after the original crash.
Oh, thank you, I
So
misunderstood.
He stopped to render aid, and the police car pulled up behind it and then was struck, so,
Thank you, Chief.
thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Item number 5, the consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are considered routine by the board and will be enacted in one motion. There's no separate discussion of these items. If discussion of any item is required by a board member, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Public comments on the consent agenda are permitted. Tonight's consent agenda include approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of January 22nd, 2018, approval of the agenda, and approval of the payment of bills as submitted by the Finance Department.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion by Clerk Barry.
Support.
Support by Trustee Domingue. Discussion. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Domingue.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Treasurer LaFato.
Aye.
Supervisor Akaviti.
Aye. Motion passes. 6A, approve the DPW to purchase meters and meter components from Ferguson Waterworks at a cost of $5,864.56 from General Ledger number 591-542-740. I'll make a motion to approve as stated.
Second?
Motion by Supervisor Akavetti, support by Clerk Barry. Assistant Director Johnson.
This is just our normal, meter components we're going to need to repair and install water meters, so the basic normal spiel.
Questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Motion by Supervisor Akavetti, support by Clerk Barry, to approve the DPW to purchase meter components and meters from Ferguson Waterworks at a cost of $5,864.56. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Supervisor Akavetti.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Domink.
Aye.
Treasurer LaFata.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion prevails. 6B, approve a request by the Public Safety Department to pay an invoice from the Macomb County Finance Department in the amount of $19,625.81 from General Ledger account number 205-336-801. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Domink,
Second.
support by Clerk Barry. Director Kirsten.
My memo's pretty self-explanatory, I believe. I'll entertain any questions if you have anything. This is in regards to the trench rescue, where some construction workers became trapped below grade on Edgewater Street back in August. We utilize a lot of resources from mutual aid fire companies across the county, and under their agreement, we are ultimately responsible for the repayment of the cost and labor and manpower that was involved in that effort. We do have a cost recovery ordinance in the township to go after, but unfortunately, I don't believe that this type of activity is reflected properly in that cost recovery, although we are attempting it. We haven't had much success. So the cost that you see here is the expenditures from other agencies that was forwarded to Macomb County Department of Emergency Management, who oversees and manages this type of operation. It is their expense to keep a good working relationship with these groups and to have this technical capacity available to our community. I'd like to get these other communities paid or at least reimbursed of what they expended on that event.
Any questions? Any questions?
Yes.
Trustee Anderson.
Yeah, Chief, I don't believe you were supervising this department at the time, the fire department, but do we have any firefighters that have such training that we had to call in 6 other communities to help in this crisis in Chesterfield?
No.
Thank you.
Trustee Joseph.
And that'll be addressed in the future though, correct?
We're going to address it beginning tonight on the next couple agenda items that I have in front of you. Number 1, and I'll speak to them when we get there, but yes.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes.
So, we have all these departments that respond, right? Who runs the show out there? Because I was watching on the news, and then I caught some of the the live feeds, and then some of the other. It just looked like complete chaos to me. And I know that there was a tactical team. There was a team there that had training, and they were the appointed certified trench rescue agency. I thought that was the folks from New Haven. Maybe I'm mistaken, but
They are part of the team, yes.
are all of the Chief Charbonneau was at the scene ordering our people out. That there was a directive to sort of turn that over to the certified team, as I understood it at the time.
Correct.
Who makes the call for the mutual aid, and the individuals that are actually in the hole are screaming, "Give me a rope"? I don't, they don't get a say in what looks like 8 different departments. So there's 8 different departments that arrive, and they're all working on different parts of the hole. There's people putting wood in. There's a guy with a saw. There's a guy with a and they're shoring up sections of the. How do you get to
20, 30, 40 grand, and then say that's part of our mutual aid. We, you know, like, what do we, I know these are rare, but it just made, it was really quite impossible. And I know Chief Charbonneau, before he retired, was talking about a recovery effort and sending a bill to the contractors and so forth. How does our ordinance speak to this, and what separates, you know, somebody who's in need, they pay taxes, they're residents of the, or they're just in the community and they need services, to the recovery? Where's the line? Just, you know, shooting a lot of questions at you. I'm just stunned that we have a bill like this, but.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I was surprised that our fire department wasn't a member of this technical rescue group. I assumed at the time I was there that day, I assumed at the time we were. I was surprised to find out the weeks after that we were not part of this technical group. How our cost recovery played into this, again, the specifics of our cost recovery don't specifically mention a technical subsurface rescue. It mentions hazmat, it mentions other costs at crashes, traffic crashes, but not this event here. The organized chaos is the best that I can call it at that time. It is bringing all those assets and resources to that specific emergency. Is based on the qualifications and really Chief Charbonneau's call at the time when this event happened, was what he saw his capabilities of the department were, and what he saw that the staffing and the training of our fire department was at the time. Not to say that it's poor, but we don't have the tools and the manpower that had the technical aspects to pull this off at that level. I'm disappointed. I thought we did. We're making efforts now, and you'll see later on the agenda items. We're engaging in that sort of training. We're engaging in that sort of initial response. I think we should have had an initial response capability, but it really is planning and preparing for these type of events, which we didn't have the full grasp on at that time.
When we have one of those, who runs the show out there? So like we have 8 different departments, and we really had, again, just watching it, it looked like a multitude of operations were going on, all independent, and there didn't seem to be any real sort of quarterback for, you know, since we're fresh from the Super Bowl, there was nobody calling the plays there. I couldn't figure out, and our people were just sort of pulling back, you know, like it was the chief at the time saying, like, there's people here that are trained. We had 8 different departments out there, all trained. We had, I don't even know if you could, you needed your people out there just to direct all the rigs that were, you know, the amount of equipment that was on the scene, the amount of personnel that was on the scene, the amount of big, you know, heavy, it was really nobody calling the shots, if you will. What happens when that goes on? Is that now your responsibility? You make that call now?
Yeah, to a certain degree, yes. Again, if it happened again today in the community, we'd have to go down the same road and call in the technical people, because our department currently doesn't have the technical training to pull this type of rescue off in that fashion that they did it. Now, we could have all jumped in the hole and started, got an operator there and began to dig out ourselves. That's an avenue that you could have gone down. But in that organized chaos scene, yes, there's a command structure that falls into place, and a joint incident command system. They utilize it, they implement it, but on that day, yes, our firefighters basically backed away, Chief Charbonneau backed away, and the technical command team came in and they took over the scene and managed it and mitigated it and resolved it successfully. It's something that we need to take a look at operationally, internally, and elevate our standards so we can perform this type of event or manage it at a much quicker, efficient, better method.
Well, at the end of the day, nobody was hurt and everybody went home to their families. So, you know, that's the main focus, obviously. But I appreciate you looking into it deeper.
Trustee
Thank you.
Domingue.
One quick question, Chief. If we're a member of the team, do you still have to pay for everybody to come out, or is it just like mutual aid? You all help, like police mutual aid? If you call for help, police mutual aid, everybody shows up, you don't get a bill.
Yeah, this would have been then handled at the county's level, because it would have been their team, we would have been a member of it. The county would have managed this, but
That's what your
because.
next agenda item will bring up, so if we have another incident or a member of the team.
Correct.
We're not gonna get a bill.
And there's other components too. I need to sit down with the attorney, and we need to readdress our cost recovery aspects of this and how we want to approach that in the future. But yes, we're a paying member for this sort of service. If we want it, they'll come, and there's a bill that comes with it.
But if we join, we won't
We
get-
join, we become a participant, we'll assign staff to it, we'll assign staff to get at least operator training level, and there's then the door's open for the county to kind of oversee this.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Further board comments? I know Director and I have talked about this ad nauseum since the event happened and played out before our eyes on TV. Is a bit unfortunate that our public safety department here in Chesterfield has to burden the $20,000 hit for this. But it highlights in another area the need for more clear processes and procedures. When do you call? What does that look like? What's our exposure? Knowing that the first and foremost thing is to save life, and this did end up into being a very successful trench situation. However, I'll be looking forward to the next agenda item and continuing with all the discussions that we've had is to participate in this, to have the knowledge on our own staff moving forward, so that we're better equipped to handle these situations if they unfortunately do arise in the future. Motion by Trustee Demink, support by Clerk Berry, to approve the request by the Public Safety Department to pay the invoice from the Macomb County Finance Department in the amount of $19,625.81. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Treasurer LaFata.
Aye.
Supervisor Echeverry.
Aye. Motion prevails. 6C, discussion regarding the proposed master plan and to discuss a special board meeting on February 12th from the Planning Commission to present the master plan draft to the Township Board. Do I have a motion to open this up for discussion?
So moved?
Support?
Motion by Trustee Joseph, support by Trustee Demink. Trustee Joseph, you want to lead us off?
Yeah, just a follow-up to this, this issue that came about. It's kind of been on the back burner for some time now, and the area that brought it into, like, front and center, I guess we could say, was the discussion we had a board meeting or so ago about the North Gratiot Quadrant and the idea of moving infrastructure, putting in infrastructure in the north end of the township, and what that meant to our master plan. And did our master plan support that? And where is our master plan was sort of the larger question. And the next stage of having the master plan approved is to really just make sure that all the board members are familiar with it. In talking in the Planning Commission, we were briefed by the contract planner, Mr. Maher, and also by Mr. Palin, our township planner, the process. And the process really involves now taking the work that's been done by the Planning Commission and having them sort of break down for our board and members of the public exactly what's laid out there. We would, as the plan calls for, then send it out to neighboring communities and look for feedback. That process is a couple of months long, and then a public hearing in the Planning Commission to finally adopt the master plan. We thought that the first step would be, since it was created under the previous board, is to bring it to the new board, or the relatively new board, and allow for discussion and questions and answers. So we were asking, rather than have that placed on an agenda with all the other township business, that we set that aside and allow the Planning Commission members to come forward and present their master plan. We're asking to do that next Monday on the 12th, and I don't really have a time. I assume that we could do the same time. Planning Commission meets at 7. Our board meetings are at 7. It might be the most familiar to everybody if that's possible. So I would ask that we have a special township board meeting on February 12th at 7 p.m. for the purposes of presenting a master plan and allowing the board to, understand it, ask questions, and so forth.
Trustee
I'm in,
Domingue.
agreement with what Trustee Joseph said, like I say, it started with my term on planning, and then it got handed over to David last year, and it's been sitting there, so between Mr. Miller, Mr. LaBelle, Mr. Stabile, Mr. Maher, I know they put a lot of time and effort into everything, so they can present it to the board, and everybody else on the board can see what's going on and then ask their questions.
I don't believe we need this to be an action item. We'll have the clerk contact as many members as possible and see what time on the 12th. We'll shoot for 7 o'clock, like normal, works for everybody.
Whatever you guys want.
And we will publish and get the special board meeting to keep the master plan moving forward, which is well overdue.
Take a vote on that. Motion by Joseph.
Well, we're just into discussion mode, so, okay, we'll amend your motion to set a special board meeting for February 12th, and we'll shoot for 7 p.m.
Okay, so I'm just, you're saying that we don't need a motion? I can withdraw the motion if you'd like, if you just want to set it. I'm just not understanding the procedural
Clerk
here.
Barry, how would you like it handled?
Well, I think it would be cleanest if you can amend the motion to set a special board meeting for February 12th. That way that's from the call of the board for a special board meeting for February 12th at 7 p.m.
Great.
Continued support.
Motion by Trustee Joseph, support by Trustee Domingue to set a special board meeting for February 12th for the purpose of the Planning Commission to present a master plan draft to the Township Board. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Domingue. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Treasurer LaFata.
Aye.
Supervisor Akavetti.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
6D, approve a request by the Treasurer's Office to collect 50% of the New Haven School District 2018 tax levy in the summer and adopt Resolution 2018-02.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request from the Treasurer's Office to collect 50% of the New Haven School District 2018 tax levy in the summer and adopt Resolution 2018-02.
Motion by Clerk Barry,
Support.
support by Treasurer LaFata. Discussion? Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Clerk Barry, aye. Treasurer LaFata.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Domingue.
Aye.
Supervisor Akavetti.
Aye. Motion passes. 7E, approve a request by the Public Safety Department to renew the annual maintenance contract for finger roll live scan system in the amount of $3,495 from General Ledger account 205-301-801.
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Anderson, support by Trustee Domingue. Director Kirsten.
Maintenance agreement for our live scan fingerprint rolls. We use to fingerprint all of our arrested parties and identify them as they're brought into the station. It's all electronic. You gave us permission here October of last year. We updated the instrument, and now this is the maintenance agreement that will run annually for that same instrument for service repairs and 24-hour login and maintenance.
Discussion. Motion by Trustee Anderson, support by Trustee Domingue. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Domingue.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Treasurer LaFata.
Aye.
Supervisor Akavetti.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Motion prevails. 7F, approve a request by the Public Safety Department to sign an agreement with the Macomb County Technical and Hazmat Service.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to approve Public Safety Department request to sign an agreement with the Macomb County Technical Hazmat Service.
Support.
Motion by Trustee Joseph, support by Treasurer LaFata. Director.
Again, this is becoming actual members of the technical rescue team and the hazardous materials team. Should we ever have either event occur in the township, we now have the resources of the Macomb County Department of Emergency Management. And under their guise, we have all those resources that were given to us on the trench rescue, not only for the technical aspects of it, but also a hazardous chemical spill, whether it be on the freeway, roadway, railway. We have the vast resources of what the county can bring to us with the use of the other departments that come under mutual aid.
Discussion.
So there's no cost to join,
Correct.
right? So we got a $20,000 bill that all we really needed to do was be part of this organization. Fair statement?
Correct.
And curious, is there, there's nothing in the contract that I looked at that says you have to have X number of individuals, trained in a trench rescue. You just have to be part of the, hazmat team. I guess I won't even ask why wouldn't we, because you can't possibly have an answer for that. But what would be different, aside from a $20,000 bill, if we have members of the team that aren't trained, right? So we have that unfold in our township. Now, we get the benefit of the team and people who do have the expertise, they send their equipment. But do any of the other team members, aside from, who's responsible for ensuring the people that come out are trained to do whatever the rescue requires? Like, there's more than just, bravery and willingness, right? There has to be some technical understanding. Otherwise, you're gonna get 100 guys, throwing dirt around, jamming wood in, throwing ropes, and
Correct.
so what do you get aside from relief from a bill? Like, how are we gonna train people? Are we gonna,
My goal is, yes, that our department, that our fire department particularly engage in this sort of training, in this technical training, and become experts in this area, where not only it's a benefit to this community, but it'll also be a benefit to the other communities should we need it. And they fall under the guise of the Department of Emergency Management from Macomb County, who oversees, set the standards, set the qualifications of this sort of operation, and they basically mitigate and manage it. And it relinquishes basically our obligation to have an all-encompassing team, which we don't have. We don't have the resources to mitigate a chemical spill on a rail car that's going to come through Chesterfield. God forbid it happen, but our fire department just does not have the capabilities of doing it. Joining this team, Macomb County does have those resources. They do have the training. They do have the employees that are capable of coming and assisting and managing this sort of an event.
very good?
I remember several years ago, when they were doing the underground sewer, Supervisor Acovetti, you probably know it from your prior experience, when they were running it up from Harrison Township, it was way underground. Harrison was the backup. Brad, you probably remember it from the PD. Something never happened underground because that pipe was like 30 feet underground. Harrison was the first responding department, even up here, for if something would have collapsed on that. So I'm sure the same thing happened down in Fraser. If something would have happened down there with that big sewer thing, while all those guys were working, that would have been.
I believe down there, they contracted a company that sat with them 24 hours a day, but yeah, it's.
Because that was, you're talking 60 feet from Fraser.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Clerk Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just curious what your anticipated fiscal impact, what you anticipate the fiscal impact is going to be. We know what it is when we're not a member. What are the anticipated fiscal impacts of becoming members?
Most of these training classes to become proficient in this sort of operation are offered free. They're offered free by other departments within the county and the tri-county area, if not. I can't explain why we don't have that expertise in the department, other than I can only, since my time is leading both departments, is that they focused in other areas that I think were probably misplaced directions. You know, to say that a trench collapse or a hazardous spill would never occur here, obviously, it's going to happen eventually. We just have to have the ability or the resources to handle and manage that incident. Going back to your cost, I don't see a large impact. Firemen train daily, police officers train daily.
So this would be incorporated with their normal
That is my
training
plan.
schedule?
My plan is that this should become a routine and incorporated within their current training schedule.
Thank you.
We have a comment from the public. We'll move over to Joe. State your
Joe
name.
Kadich on Sutton. Just a couple of things came up during this thing, in the previous one about the bill. I was wondering, is our DPW trained in trench rescue? You guys get into a lot of trench digging, I'm assuming. There must be some training. You've got the equipment though, right, basically?
I would rather have him not answer that from there. If he does want to come up, he's more than
Okay,
that.
basically what I'm getting at is, this is falling back on the on the Public Safety Department to get the training and everything else. I think there's a couple of things that could be done, is utilizing the DPW. They've got a whole garage full of stuff over there that they could have been called in. The second, and maybe want to think about that in the future, the second thing is, I've seen a lot of the trenching and the foundation digging and everything. There's one going on down the street from me. About 2 weeks ago, they were digging a trench to get out to the sewer by the street. It's about 12 feet deep. It was muddy as hell all over their whole lot where they built this house. And they were out there, and some guy was jumping in to put the whatever piping they needed. And I'm wondering why, when they apply for a permit to build or put in a sewer line or whatever they're gonna do, we don't have some specific safety items that should go along with that, that they have to recognize and adhere to. One of them being, if you're gonna dig a trench, you better have it reinforced if you're gonna have man down there, or have a way that those people are protected to try and prevent this, not worry about what are we gonna do down the road to rescue them. You may wanna give that some thought.
Thank you, Mr. Kadich.
Mr. Supervisor?
Hold on one second, if I can. I'll do the best I can to follow up with you a little bit here. Our public safety, our public works team, the men out there digging the trench, they are trained in MIOSHA standards for trench safety, for doing the construction work. When there comes an incident, a trench collapse, or an injury on a site, that becomes a public safety function. So no longer can a DPW worker do a public safety function. It becomes a different focus area altogether. Got to be very careful dictating means and methods. The contractors that do work in town, whether they're working on our township-owned parcels and work, are bonded and insured. And that's the check, and they, depending on the level and the scope of the project, for example, if it's a deep sewer project, they would be bonded and qualified to put in deep sewer. And you're not qualified or bonded to put in deep sewer unless if you can have demonstrated a track record of safety. As a government entity, you got to be very, very conscious of dictating any kind of means and methods, but you can dictate that they follow those rules. The state agency that oversees safety is MIOSHA, and they're the ones that regulate that. Now, our inspectors in the field, if they see something, they have a duty to respond, unsafe trench incident, to mention something to the individuals out there. But actually dictating the means and methods is something that a municipality shouldn't or can't do. Trustee Joseph.
Thank you. You covered most of what I was going to say. I did want to just sort of add on to the The preventative side of that, if you've ever watched our DPW guys out on the site, they're very aware of their own safety. And the firsthand opportunity to experience that was right out in my own front yard. And they were down pretty deep, and you had people above that were just simply there to make sure that, you know, ground doesn't give way, so that we didn't have a situation where there needed to be some rescue. They put in appropriate, you know, I don't know what all that stuff is called, but, you know, they were shoring up the sides and making sure that they were safe inside, you know, a 12, 15-foot hole. This week, I got a call from a new resident, bought a home in the township. He was actually over your neck of the woods and was doing some work on his house. He had a trench. Neighbor called to just inquire if a permit had been pulled, and our ordinance officer was out at the scene and engaged the homeowner and his crew and basically said, you can't, you know, do this type of work without a permit. Please, gave him all the instructions. He came down. He called me and he was frustrated. He was worried that the hole that he was working in had filled with water, and he was worried about the next day it freezing and how long did the permit process take. And I talked to Gary DeMasters, and right along the lines of what you're talking about, he didn't dictate to the homeowner what he could or couldn't do, but I think it was the way that they engaged the homeowner, where they were able to give him some suggestions, very strong suggestions, and make sure that that was a safe operation. And I think that's the best way, you know, to go about it. And I know that that's something that is on the, you know, the minds and how we operate as a township. Our DPW guys are pretty skilled in that area. The preventative part, it would be really a shocker to hear. Things happen all the time in the field, but the precautions that are taken by DPW to make sure that our people are down there safe is a whole lot different than trying to extract somebody who's in a hole doing things that they shouldn't be doing, and that definitely becomes a very, you know, chaotic thing. They were in the hole screaming, give us a rope, tie it to my car, you know, scoop me out with a, you know, so their extraction methods clearly were not what we see in the $20,000 bill, but, you know, that's what happens when you do unsafe things in an unsafe way. Our people don't do that. And they try to stop it when they see it and when they can. Thanks.
One quick follow-up question, Director. Looks like this agreement was executed with the existing agencies in 2011. Do you
Correct.
anticipate any issues with them? They need to approve us to become a member, the way I read it. Do you anticipate any issues with that?
None. I've had conversations with the county's emergency management director. I asked her, they're welcome aboard, please.
And clarify, if you can, if one of the participating municipalities have an incident where this specialized rescue team collaboration between multiple municipalities participate in. If you're a participating municipality, there is, the way I understand it, there's still an invoice for that, but we will be a recipient of those.
Correct.
Of those services.
Correct. Whatever our expenses are now are covered, and it's billed under the county's Department of Emergency Management. They oversee the restitution of that bill or whatever that cost is to that agency, community, wherever that resource was used.
Thank you. Any further questions from the board? Motion by Trustee Joseph, support by Treasurer LaFata, to approve the request from the Public Safety Department to sign an agreement with the Macomb County Technical and Hazmat. It'd be signed two agreements, one with the Macomb County Technical and Hazmat Service. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Treasurer LaFata.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Supervisor Riccavetti.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Motion prevails.
Thank you.
There are no public hearings, so moving on to item number 8, addendum. There are no addendum. Number 9, public comments. You have 5 minutes, state your name and your address, and speak clearly into the microphone. Not a whole lot of participation tonight. I'll close the public comment portion and move on to item 10, board
All right,
comments.
Here's what I got.
Excuse me.
Trustee Anderson.
Thank you, sir. I think, tonight, Chief Kirsten, good job again, shepherding the resources of our township, and with that, and the brevity of the meeting and the temperature outside, I'll thank you.
Trustee Demink.
I have something from Parks and Rec from our Parks and Rec Director, Amanda Willard. Thanks, spring. Time to register for youth baseball is now. We have a variety of youth leagues available for kids ages 5 to 15. Practices and games are played at Pollard Park, the township offices, memorial or festival parks. Sign up in our community and your child plays ball from April through June. You'll see them on the field having fun, encouraging coaches, umpires, parents, and spectators. Players receive a full uniform shirt, hat, pant, sock, and medal with the exception of T-ball. T-ballers receive a hat, shirt, and medal. Boys and girls can register in the following divisions. T-ball is $50. Pitching machine is $70. Minor baseball is $80. Major baseball is $80. Senior boys baseball is $85. Our non-resident fee is just $5. Come out and play in your neighborhood with your family and friends. And everyone is welcome. The last day to register is February 23rd. And that's all I have tonight, sir.
Thank you, Trustee Demink. I think we gotta get you a bigger screen to look at while you read your
I'm supposed to be getting
marching
the phone,
orders.
so I'll be turning this one in.
Trustee Joseph.
Thank you. Most of my comments were chewed up with Mr. Kadich in the agenda item involving the inclusion now of our Public Safety Department with the county hazmat team. Wanted to say thanks to Trustee Demink. We've had a couple of issues, both with your ending on the Planning Commission and me starting there, and appreciate the resource and support. Pretty tricky issue, and so thank you for that. Also, the updates, from Parks and Rec. I get a couple of calls. The Parks and Rec, the programming over there, in talking with Amanda Willard, this daddy-daughter dance that we do, I understand there's over 500 and some participants, and they are looking to branch potentially next year with maybe New Baltimore and try to do 2 nights. Their community, our community, waived the non-resident. She has really hit the ground running. She's doing an outstanding job, and her years in Parks and Rec are really paying off for us because she's got some really good ideas, and she's, I think, got a pretty good team around her. So looking forward to some of the things that they have going on. And the Chief Kirsten touched on it earlier in the meeting, that event at Stalls, the Tigers, coming through the township and acknowledging Stalls, a real gem in our community, 85 years in business. And I had no idea that their starting point was just the decoration of uniforms, and they handle all the lettering and numbering for what started out to be just local, as Trustee Demink was talking about, Little League teams and T-ball teams, and has grown to the letter and numbering company for Major League Baseball, the NFL. I understand they do the NHL, and nearly every high school organization has probably got some Stalls lettering somewhere along the way. So hard to believe right here in our Chesterfield Township is their pride and joy in that museum, and you could tell the young players who were new to the Tigers organization walking through really their first full day probably in the Motor City out at Stalls Museum, looking at some of the most incredible vintage automobiles on the planet. Eyes wide open. I think a couple of the Cuban guys saw some vehicles that they recognized from home, which was a cool discussion. But the thought of having that right here in Chesterfield is just really a real hidden gem. So it was great to see that, and it was great that they came out and recognized our township police department. That was really quite a surprise, and a welcome surprise. So I know you had a few of your officers out there and command officers, and it was quite a proud moment. So really was a great day in the township, and that's it.
Treasurer LaFata.
I'd also like to thank our Public Safety Director, Kirsten, for moving the newly formed department forward in its development. Thank you, Chief.
Clerk Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just want to give a quick update on some of the upcoming events that are going on. In our Community Enrichment series, we have this coming Thursday, How to Become a Community Leader. I think we already have about a dozen people that have registered for that. That is for anyone who's ever wanted to become involved in our community, help shape our future, but you weren't sure how to actually get involved. You can come this Thursday, February 8th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. and learn about all the exciting opportunities that are available for you and how to get started to becoming on the road to becoming a community leader. Next week, we shift to a social media and internet safety. Our Chesterfield Township police officers and our IT specialists will teach you and your family how to protect your children and yourselves on social media from predators, and also learn what to do if you believe that you are being harassed or stalked online. So not only how to prevent it, but also what to do if you believe that you're a victim of that. And the last one for this season of the series, I'm really excited about. Trustee Joseph mentioned how we have some tremendous gems in our township, and this is one on Thursday, February 22nd, again here at the township from 6:30 to 8 p.m. We are going to have published author Kathy Eubanks, who lives in our community with us, and she is going to be presenting Supermom's Guide to the Good Life. And that is for all those supermoms out there, and I think pretty much every mom qualifies. Certainly Kathy does, in addition to being very well-known. She is just a little bit about her. She's a top motivational speaker and author. She has a passion for helping others and aiming them to help them improve their opportunities. She is an energetic, down-to-earth, and inspirational message that moves and motivates audiences to improve their lives, relationships, and leadership ability by improving attitude and outlook. Kathy's humor, genuine warmth, and stories are ones we can all relate to and have impacted many lives. She has over 25 years of experience educating adults and aiming to improve their opportunities. She is a member of the National Speakers Association. She has served on the board of directors. She has a master's degree from Wayne State University. She's been a college professor and has earned the Excellence in Teaching Award. She is married. She's a mother of 3. She's a contributor with the Girl Scouts, volunteers at her daughter's school, active in her church. So by all accounts, certainly one of those super moms. And she states that she is passionate about helping other people improve their lives and relationships. She speaks nationwide. Her book is here, and we have that here at the township if everyone wants to take a look at it. So another tremendous gem, an asset that we have here in our township, and she has been kind enough to volunteer her time to come here and share one of her presentations with us at absolutely no cost. So very, very grateful and thankful to have her here for us. And I was asked by a reporter earlier today, what motivated you to offer something targeted toward moms, toward mothers? And I honestly had to say, I have been so inspired over the last 5 years of so many of the moms who work here in the township, who work for us on a daily basis that we work with. They are truly super moms and so inspirational to me. They come here, they work a full day. Some of them are heads of their households. They have children, they have all their work obligations. They have a lot of community involvement, and I don't know how they do it all. And but I do know that a lot of times, things get stressful, and I thought, these women are so inspirational to me. I'd like to offer them something. And so Kathy is going to share with us, herself being a super mom too, how do we balance it all? How do we keep it all together? And let's not forget who we are and ourselves in the process. So I think it's going to be a tremendous opportunity and a great evening. And so I encourage everyone to come out on February 22nd to take advantage of Kathy's program for us. So very exciting. This Saturday, February 10th, at Tim Hortons from 10 to 12, I will be there for coffee with the clerk. I invite anyone who would like to sit down, have a cup of coffee with me, maybe talking about an issue or concern for you, whether that is something regarding the upcoming elections this year, so a clerk-related item, or whether that's just something in the township, anything A to Z. I'd be happy to share a cup of coffee with you and some conversations. So thank you so much.
Thank you. We will be having our next meeting February 12th, a week from tonight, to discuss the master plan, and part of that discussion will be the infrastructure needs to get to some undeveloped areas of our township. The meeting after that will be on a Tuesday, on February the 20th instead of Monday. Those are our next two meetings. With that, we'll move on to item number 11, which is the closed session. 11A, discussion regarding strategy and negotiation of collective bargaining agreements pursuant to Section 8C of the Open Meetings Act.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion that we enter into closed session for discussion regarding strategy and negotiation pursuant to 8C of the Open Meetings Act.
Motion by Clerk Barry.
Support.
Support by Trustee Anderson. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink. Aye. Treasurer LaFata.
Aye.
Supervisor Akavetti.
Aye. We are in closed session as of 8 p.m. Do I have a motion to re-enter open session?
Motion to go back into open session.
Motion by Trustee Demink.
Support.
Support by Clerk Barry to re-enter open session. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Treasurer LaFata.
Aye.
Supervisor Akavetti.
Aye. We are back in closed session at 8:30 p.m.
Open session.
Back in open session at 8:30 p.m. Item number 12 is adjournment. We have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Clerk Barry, support by
Second.
Trustee Anderson to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?